Amazon has pulled out of its planned New York headquarters, and this has got everybody all topsy-turvy. I'm seeing people on the left argue with the left, and the right argue with the left, right. Oh, man, there's a lot here. Basically, the story for a while was that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and even Tucker Carlson agreed with her. Why would New York offer tax abatements to Amazon to come to New York City? Amazon doesn't need special treatment. If Amazon wants to come to New York, they can pay taxes like anybody else. Apparently, New York was offering basically like a tax break. Amazon, if you come here, we will incentivize you to come here. Why? 50,000 new jobs, a huge boost to the New York economy, and potentially still some tax revenue. But thanks to the shaming of certain politicians, that's out. But let's read some of the New York story and we'll break this down. And I've got a tweet we can look at. Amazon said on Thursday that it was canceling plans to build a corporate campus in New York City. The company had planned to build a sprawling complex in Long Island City, Queens, in exchange for nearly $3 billion in state and city incentives. Incentives are not giving money to them. But the deal had run into fierce opposition from local lawmakers who criticized providing subsidies to one of the world's most valuable companies. Amazon said the deal would have created more than 25,000 jobs. Okay, so not 50,000. But also, tax abatement, not a subsidy. Amazon's decision is a major blow for Governor Andrew M. Cuomo and Mayor Bill de Blasio, who had set aside their differences to lure the giant tech company to New York. As recently as Wednesday, the governor had brokered a meeting between Amazon executives and union leaders who had been resistant to the deal, according to two people briefed on the sit-down. The meeting ended without any compromise on the part of Amazon, according to the people. In recent days, supporters had begun mobilizing and felt encouraged by polls showing broad-based support for the company. Some could be seen wearing pins in support of Amazon. But those efforts did not sway many critics who opposed the company for its anti-union practices and for the changes they feared it would bring to Queens. So this is a photo. It says, to lure Amazon city and state officials had offered the company one of the largest ever incentive packages in exchange for a much larger return in jobs and tax revenue. Okay, listen. If New York City says, we will give you, $3 billion in state and city incentives, but the company generates $5 billion in tax revenue. If you write off that $3 billion, the city makes $2 billion. They bring jobs. It bolsters the economy. Not necessarily a bad idea. I can understand the criticism, but here we have a tweet. This was retweeted by someone from the New York Daily News. Errol Lewis, who is the host of Inside City Hall and hashtag You Decide podcast, NY1 News columnist for the Daily News, tweeted, for Christ's sake, tax abatements are not cash to spend elsewhere. Killing the deal results in zero additional dollars for the MTA or anything else. It's a Pyrrhic victory. I'd love to get into the history of where Pyrrhic victory comes from, but essentially it means you've hurt yourself to win. New York is in trouble. The MTA, which is like the subway and the buses, is falling apart. So Williamsburg is hipster town. It's where Vice was headquartered. I briefly lived there, and rent is skyrocketing. It's gentrifying very quickly. I think there was one chart that showed property values went up like 300% over 1 year because all the cool kids wanted to live there, and they probably still do. Although I think Bedford and Bed-Stuy are popping up. But something interesting happened. The L train is the easiest way to get from the hipster neighborhood into Manhattan. For those that aren't familiar, Manhattan is the river is blocking Brooklyn to Manhattan. So if you live in Williamsburg and you're one of these hipsters, you take the L train. Always very crowded. And it's only like 1 or 2 stops because it goes under the river, brings you into the city. They announced they were going to, in 2019, I believe this, they announced it a few years ago, they were going to shut it down for a long time. And all of a sudden, all the real estate owners in Williamsburg started freaking out because this was going to destroy property values. No one's going to want to live in Williamsburg if you can't get to Manhattan for work. The MTA has been in complete turmoil. The overcrowding, delays. I mean, you look at these videos of Japan, of these trains, and people are crowded in them. But the trains in East Asia, they're beautiful. They're very nice. I mean, they even have like glass, bulletproof glass, like thick glass blocking the train track so you can't fall in. A door opens. So, New York, it's just kind of scummy. The MTA desperately needed this money. They desperately needed tax revenue to fix the problem because a lot of people are concerned the MTA system's not going to, you can't maintain it. But here's what happens. Activists like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, politician Cortez, thinks that $3 billion in tax abatement would be cash to spend. And we saw the same thing with what Cortez said about the 21 trillion in accounting errors from the Pentagon. Cortez doesn't seem to understand how economics works, how finances works. Just because you're giving a break to Amazon doesn't mean you're not going to bring in any money. It means they're going to bring in more money. But let's carry on with the New York Times story. They say, State Senators Michael Gianaris, a vocal critic who was chosen for a state board with the power to veto the deal, said the decision revealed Amazon's unwillingness to work with the Queens community it had wanted to join. Like a petulant child, Amazon insists on getting its way or takes its ball and leaves. The only thing that happened here is that a community that was going to be profoundly affected by their presence started asking questions. Now let's point this out for sure. There's a lot of people who are making fun of New York and saying, oh, the far left has sabotaged this deal and all that stuff. But hold on, man. Listen, I don't live in New York. I haven't lived there in about a year and a half or 2 years. If they don't want it, fine. If they don't want the revenue, fine. They don't have to have it. If this is what they really wanted, Cortez and whoever else who are complaining about this, if this is what they wanted, congratulations. Now you can call it a pirate victory if you live there. For me, I'm kind of just like, okay, well, Amazon's going to make a ton of money and bolster the economy of somewhere else. You know what? Amazon, I think they should go outside of a major city. I think they should find a smaller city because they can really do good for a small town that needs its economy improved. I'm not going to pretend to know the inner workings of Amazon and why they want to be in New York, but look at one of these cities in the Midwest that have been, or the Rust Belt, that are devastated by the loss of manufacturing. Open up there. You'll encourage people to move in. You'll bring jobs to people who have lost their jobs. There's a direct tie between the opioid crisis and unemployment. So let's bring jobs where jobs are needed. New York City is not one of these places. They say to attract Amazon, city and state officials offered the company one of the largest ever incentive packages in exchange for a much larger return. Okay, we read that. They agreed to remake plans for the Queens waterfront and move a distribution center for school lunches. They even agreed to give Jeff Bezos, Amazon's chief executive, access to a helicopter pad. Under the plan, within 15 years, the company could occupy as much as 8 million square feet of office space. I mean, whatever. It sounds like it could be good. It included a campus of office buildings for as many as 40,000 workers. But almost as soon as it was announced, the deal was met with resistance from local elected officials like Mr. Gianaris and progressive groups that held rallies and petitioned in Queens against the deal. Many critics were angered that this circumvented the normal land use process and essentially eliminated any veto power by the city council. The idea of scaling back plans for a New York campus was a subject that had become increasingly discussed among the Amazon's board. Get a copy editor. I read enough articles to just be like, where's your copy editor at? Among the Amazon's board. When you say the Amazon, you're referring to the forest. I hope you realize that. According to a source familiar with the board's decisions. The meetings between Amazon and Mr. Cuomo and de Blasio before the company decided to come to New York led executives to believe that there would be greater political support that turned out to be the case. The company had chosen New York as well as a site in Northern Virginia for major expansion. On Thursday, the company said it had no plans to reopen a search for a second location. Catherine S. Wild, the chief executive of the Partnership for New York City, an influential business group, said, "How can anyone be surprised? We competed successfully, made a deal, and spent the last 3 months trashing our new partner." Ms. Wild said the reception Amazon had received sent a pretty bad message to the job creators of the city and the world. And Amazon released a big statement, so I don't want to read through this. It seems tedious, but they do say, "Thank you again to Governor Cuomo, Mayor Bill de Blasio, and the many other community leaders and residents who welcomed our plans and supported us along the way. We hope to have future chances to collaborate as we continue to build our presence in New York over time." New York is, I think we've got a bigger problem in our country in that we are centralizing too much work in big cities. So I'm going to have to say this. When it comes to internal New York City politics, I kind of don't know. I think they needed the money, they needed the revenue, they needed the jobs because they need to fix their public transport. At the same time, we can't keep taking away manufacturing from middle America and then putting big companies in big cities. All that happens is, we have more people living in big cities than ever before. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. This is something I read a while ago. But when Rust Belt jobs are gone, when manufacturing is gone, coal mining is gone, there's no more money in these places. Where do people go? They move to big cities. The last thing we need is more incentive for people to move to already overcrowded New York. My God. If there's one thing you never want to experience in this life is trying to drive in Manhattan. Seriously. If you try to drive it, you're nuts. You're crazy. Okay, I'm being hyperbolic. It's bad though. And it's only going to get worse. It's overcrowded. Prices are skyrocketing. Competition for real estate is insane. Apartments cost a ton of money. The last thing we need is to be centralizing industry in already massive cities. Amazon, put your factory somewhere outside. Find somewhere that's slightly rural, maybe 40 minutes outside of a big city, maybe an hour or 2 hours away. Or find a smaller area that was devastated by the loss of manufacturing. Bring the jobs there. Interestingly, we're seeing Lincoln, Nebraska, and Omaha start to light up because there's a good reason to bring your business to one of these smaller towns. We're in the digital age. A lot of this work can be done over the internet. A lot of these things can be built in these areas where manufacturing is it's going to be cheaper for real estate. That's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to make new, massive economic headquarters. Anyway, we'll leave the story there. You guys let me know what you think. Stick around. I got one more video coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you then.